In absentia, Professor Henry Mutembei, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ndulu, the esteemed faculty and students of this prestigious university, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. God is good, and all the time, and that is his nature. I want first to thank my good friend, Professor Dickson Nkonge, the chairman of the Department of Humanities, for extending an invitation to me to come and deliver this. We have known each other for a few years, and that's why I'm here today. I bring our goodwill message from the National Council of Churches, of which I am a General Secretary, and I'm very happy to join you today. I am also very happy to have shared with the DVC, Professor Ndulu, on the story of Chuka, the story of Jerusha. I'm so happy that it's a story of a woman, a young woman, a young girl, a youth who got converted to become a Christian. And she came and planted a church here. She was not clergy, she was not old, she was young, she was a woman, yet she planted a church that is there to this day. We are happy to have our clergy here. And she didn't stop there. She also planted a school where people could get skills, not just skills in knowledge for books, but also a vocational training that is standing in our midst today. I know we had it, the TVET had to move to another location, but the spirit of learning. She did not despise herself because she was young. And we are here as young people today. She was there during the colonial period when there was the British Empire colonizing this country. But that did not discourage her to tell herself that a story that she could plant a church, she could plant a school. And she even prophesied that on this mountain, there will be a university like this. She talked of trees and a mountain where birds from all over the world would come and gather here, and they will go home refreshed. How inspiring is that story? I was telling DVC that this story should be taught on every student who comes here. It should be taught on all the lecturers. It should be memorized by every worker here, including the watchman and the guard who opened my gate. Why? Today, I'm here to tell you that the stories we tell ourselves matter. And the story of Jerusha matters to us. The success of this university matters. The National Council of Churches of Kenya in 1920s was called the Alliance of Protestant Mission. And the Alliance of Protestant Mission started the Alliance Boys High School, which just celebrated 100 years the other day. And the heritage and the story of Alliance is known all over the world, that it is a story of excellence, that every student who goes through there, or staff, or everyone who is a stakeholder there, including the parent, they can tell the story of transformation that the Alliance is. And sure enough, I'm sure 100 years, DVC, when we come here to celebrate 100 years, I can tell you I'll be alive, Mr. President. We will all gather here to celebrate 100 years. I don't know when you shall celebrate 100 years, but we'll be there no matter what. We will be able to celebrate the story of Jerusha in each one of us. So today I come here not just to lecture, but to ignite the fire in your belly. Today I come as Paul of Tarsus. As a preacher, I think today you might find that I'll be more preacher than a lecturer. Paul of Tarsus had a student or a mentor called Timothy, a young man. In Timothy chapter 1 verse 6, he tells him, "This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you." That is why I have come. Today I come to remind you that you are not a problem to Kenya. Young people are not a problem that Kenya faces. Today I've come to remind you that you are the promise. You are the Jerusha of today. Today I come to also remind you that in the theme that we are discussing today, we'll explore the theme of the profound role of youth in Kenya's national development through academic and civic engagement, through nurturing citizenship, through ethical leadership, and through meaningful participation. This vision aligns very well and seamlessly with the National Council of Churches of Kenya, whose vision is to witness to Jesus Christ and transform lives, just like Jerusha did. NCSK's strategic goals is to champion holistic transformation through education that liberates, governance that serves the people, peace that endures, and livelihoods that dignify. NCSK goals are in step with Kenya Vision 2030 and also the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that the government of Kenya is implementing. To anchor our reflections, let us go to the Bible again and reflect on the timeless story of David, the son of Jesse, a young shepherd, overlooked, underestimated, who stepped forward to face Goliath with nothing but faith, a slingshot, and 5 smooth stones. In the book of 1 Samuel, the Bible records in verse 8, chapter 17, verse 8, it records that Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not the servants of Saul? Come, choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if you overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects to serve us." Then the Philistine said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing this, the Philistine words, Saul, the king, and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. I know you know this story. The story is your story too. It was also the story of Jerusha. Living under colonial rule was not normal. Kenya itself is a story too, a living narrative of colonial chains broken by young people. Independence had won, a flag hoisted, dreams deferred, and resilience unbroken. You still are a continuation of this story. Goge wa Thiong'o powerfully declares that language as culture is a collective memory bank of a people's experience in history. We are still feeling this bank in our language. Every generation inherits this bank. We inherited it as Chuka University from Jerusha. Every one of us is playing their role to fill the bank and to deposit. And every generation must deposit more than it withdraws. Your task as young people is to tell this story better. Our task as Kenyans is to tell Kenya's story better than the generation that was there before us. Are you ready to tell the story better? Are you ready to tell the story of Jerusha and the story of this university? And how does your story connect with all of this? We need to come from fear to fire, where we rewrite our history and our narrative. Picture David as a young man. He was so young, he could not be recruited in the military. He was below 20 years in the valley of Elah. His heart is pounding. He's facing a giant named Goliath, roaring like thunder. Now picture yourself armed with, not with stones like David. At least we have passed the Stone Age. President Emeritus. We don't need stones. But you have smartphones. You have ideas. You have networks. You have knowledge that you have acquired in this university and courage. Your hopes rise like the morning sun with dreams of innovation, strength of hope that tomorrow shall be better than today. Meritocracy will thrive over tribalism, and startups that soar like eagles above the skies, and communities that thrive. But we know that shadows linger. The Goliaths of unemployment stalk more than 70% of your age mates. Corruption is draining tomorrow's resources. Climate chaos and change is threatening harvests and flocks alike. And political storms that echo old divisions and open old wounds. And what about drug abuse that has rendered our friends as zombies? What about mental health, triggered by traumas, depressions, drugs, and alcohol? The list is endless. And yes, there is shame too, shame and fear. The sting of being called entitled. Young people are said to be entitled. The weight of unfulfilled promise. The embarrassment of a series of national scandals that dim our collective light. That needs to be noted too. But hear this, my friends. Today I have not come here to lament about them. The fears and the shame. The fear and shame are not the end. They are the fuel and the forge and the anvil and the hammer that is going to shape our destiny. And we shall use this when the metal is still hot. David, a young man below the age of 20, refused to despise his tender age or lack of experience. He wasn't a trained soldier. He was just a young boy. Jerusha was just a young girl in colonial Kenya, but that did not dim her capacity or put off her fire. The discouragement from his elder brothers said, wewe una kibelembele sana. Who do you think you are? Go back and take care of the flock. His elder brothers. Saul put the coat of mail on him, which was the body armor those days. That was not an obstacle to fight a war-hardened commando that Goliath was. He instead became triumphant through action, faith, and courage. And you shall be triumphant too through action, faith, and courage. Are you ready to stand up? What will separate you from the rest of the crowd is the story you tell yourself. What will separate you from the rest of the crowd is the story you tell yourself. What story are you telling yourself? Yuval Noah Harari, a philosopher and historian, reminds us that humans think in stories, and we try to make sense of the world by telling stories. Stories of creation, stories of origin, stories of war and peace, stories of triumph, stories of discouragement. David told himself a story of triumph, as it is written in chapter 17 of Samuel, verse 32. So David has come to bring food to his brothers who are fighting, and he's listening to what the Goliath is saying. And David said in verse 32 to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. And the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go and the Lord be with you." The stories we tell ourselves. The story David told himself was a story of triumph. It was a story of victory. So David told himself a story. David believed in that story. The king and his army believed in the story too. At that point, even the brothers let him be. His faith was solid and he triumphed over Goliath. You too can triumph over the obstacles of today. You're not in Saul's dynasty. Neither are you with Jerusha in the colonial time. But the challenges of today will be your cup of tea. Another philosopher called Ben Okri warns that beware of stories you read or tell, sadly at night, beneath the waters of consciousness. They are altering your world. What stories are you reading? I know we are now in the age of social media, and there are algorithms that are controlling these stories, are based on hatred, violence, and sex. And they are just like rusts on iron. How much can you control the stories that you're reading? Beware of the stories you read. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, another Nigerian writer, says, cautions against the danger of the single story. A single story creates stereotypes. They make one story become the only story. And Goge Wadhiongo, what I said earlier, insists that we must carry our culture forward, enriching the memory bank. So every story you read is enriching that memory bank that you have. So if your bank is full of negative, toxic stories, then toxicity will become your portion. And as like Jesus said, out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. Today we must reject the single story of hapless, helpless, entitled youth. We choose instead to embrace the stories of empowerment, stories of agency, stories of transformation. Let us begin now. On academic engagement, how do we forge the mind and smoothen the stones that we have today? David did not wake up a king. He trained in solitude, in the wilderness, defending sheep from lions and bears, playing the harp to the wilderness. There was no audience. Honing aim, building skills. Your time here at Chuka University is that sacred solitude. Of course, Chuka is not a wilderness. It is a palace. It is a holiday home. You have such a nice campus, I must say. Here you forge the tools for national development, critical thinking, research, innovation that fuel Vision 2030 knowledge economy. You aspire to STEM excellence, entrepreneurship, digital mastery, yet fears whisper in your ears like the serpent did to Eve in the Garden of Eden, that your syllabi is outdated, there are scarce resources, degrees lead to unemployment, and so on. Those stories have always been there, as they were in the Garden of Eden. Casting doubt, did God say that you should not eat any of the fruits in this garden? You must not listen to the serpent. Noah Harari challenges us that stories are tools. They can be helpful. But if a particular story makes people miserable instead of helping them, why not change it? Just like you can change a tool. Change is a must. In NCSK, we have survived for more than 113 years because of changing our strategies and our plans. NCSK calls for quality education that liberates. So dive in, conduct research on agriculture, renewable energy, climate resilience, artificial intelligence, and so on. Join clubs that bridge campus and community, turning theories into tangible impact among real people. Change ivory tower ideas to real startups that solve problems of water, of sewer systems, and of market connectivity. Lead study groups with integrity, advocate for inclusive policies, volunteer for student council leadership, and I'm happy to have the two presidents here. Volunteer in churches and communities. Teach in your local primary school. These are the things that you can do now to hone your skills. Like David, choosing his smooth stones with care, select courses and projects that confront Kenya's giant problems. Poverty, inequality, exclusion, femicide, road traffic accidents that kill so many at their ripe age. The problems are so many for you to solve. What I'm saying, don't look at the problems Kenya is facing as a giant. Be the one who will pick the smooth stone that is going to solve them. Ben Okri beautifully affirms that stories can conquer fear. You know, they can make the heart bigger. Let your academic journey expand your heart and conquer despair with hope. I would invite all of us to sing and pray the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi every morning we wake up and every day that we sleep. St. Francis said, "Let me, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen." Let's look at how can young people engage in the civic space, from the family hearth to the national ballot. David did not face Goliath alone. He rallied a cloud. I like this poem by Maya Angelou. I didn't quote it for this pitch, where he says when he goes to a meeting, he goes with his mother, his grandmother, his brothers and sisters, because he feels connected with them, even when he is entering alone in a room to face a board. David did not face Goliath alone. He rallied people. He rallied his brothers and their soldiers and the king. They were there, obviously, encouraging him. Civic engagement is your rallying call, turning passive fans and observers and watchers into active builders across every sphere of life. And you begin where every story starts, in the family. Sit in the table, discuss values, discuss ethics, discuss national challenges. Ask your parents, your siblings, what kind of Kenya do they want? Then carry that spirit forward. There's a story of a lady called Indra Nooyi, who served as the chairperson and the CEO of Pepsi Company in the US from 2006 to 2018. Her story was told to her by her mother at the dinner table. They called it the dinner table ritual. Some of you may have read about it. So what this mother used to do, and all the mothers here listen to this story too. Every night at the dinner table, Indra Nooyi's mother, who was called Shanta, would ask Indra and her sister to imagine they were the Prime Minister of India, or the Chief Minister, or a world leader of this or the other country, and make a speech about what they will do to solve the country's problems. So the exercise was designed to build the confidence of these two young girls and encourage them to dream big and instill the belief that they could achieve anything. Despite growing up in conservative middle-class household in Chennai, India, after their speeches, their mother would decide who won her vote, who gave the best speech. Every girl wanted the mother to vote for her so desperately that they worked so hard to solve the problems of India in their speeches. But it was just a game in someone's house. But what the mother did, and the mother was illiterate. Shanda may not be your mother, but you can play that role to your friends and relatives, brothers and sisters. That is why we have model parliaments and model United Nations and so on and so forth. So in the community, it is time to roll up our sleeves for cleanups, for peace forums, for public debates, for volunteer in children's homes and old people's homes. At the university, lead debates, lead clubs, be involved in governance, enter unions and practice democracy daily. At the national level, there is where the voice is needed most. Register as voters. Elections are not a sham. I know young people are saying elections are a sham. I have been involved in elections since I was at university in the 1990s. Elections are not a sham. They are the arena where Kenyan's story is contested and written. Vote thoughtfully. If the call comes, vie for office. Build the nation from the grassroots up. If you do not, who will? Your aspirations burn bright like the diamond in the sky. Corruption-free Kenya, youth shaping health, environment, and the economy, name it. But fears persist. As young people, I know you fear police brutality, elite manipulation, voter apathy, demoralization campaign that tell you that the vote does not count. I'm here to tell you it counts. On the elections are rigged and such other stories. Do not believe the stories of discouragement. You know who is weaving them. Be on the right side of history. Chimamanda Adichie says that power is the ability not just to tell the story of another person, but to make it the definitive story of that person. Basically, you can enforce the story. So do not surrender that power to tell your story to another person. Reclaim your narrative now. As Ben Okri says, people are as healthy and as confident as the stories they tell themselves. You want to be discouraged? Tell yourself a story that is discouraged. By registering as a voter, by voting for your preferred candidate, by vying for a political seat, by lobbying to be appointed in a position of authority, you ensure Kenya tells a better healthier, more confident story. One infused with your integrity, inclusion, and values of our unstoppable energy. I want to finish by talking about ethical leadership and meaningful participation. How do we lead with integrity and slay the Goliaths and the giants? David's kingship rested on ethics. You could see his humility as he served Saul by playing the harp. You could see his mercy even when he had a chance to finish Saul in the cave. In Kenya today, ethical leadership is our strongest weapon against graft, against division, against despair, and against discord. You aspire to be change makers in boardrooms, in parliaments, in startups, driving people-centered growth. Hopes for transparency and inclusion collide with fears, inherited corruption, and youth exclusion. Kenya desires an evolving plan that champions dignified livelihoods and wise resource stewardship, aligning with the national call for unity and equality and equity, hope and resilience. So answer the call by leading ethically. Do you lead ethically? We can lead in launching green tech ventures that heal our planet, build social enterprises that uplift women and the youth, poor and the widows. We can raise mentors, blending elders' wisdom with the energy of youth. That is our call that we have today. Are we willing to be part and parcel of that story? Or are we believing in the stories that are discouraging us each and every day? Stories are tools. Let us use them as such. Our civic engagement is a must for us to have. As I said, stories are the greatest human invention. We don't think that other animals tell stories. Things we do not understand, we always understand them through stories. We must acknowledge past disruptions, then channel our fire into constructive dialogue. So we must cooperate through shared stories. Stories are the greatest human invention. People need stories in order to cooperate. Actually, of all the species on Earth, most species cooperate in tribes or in families, small families. If you look at bonobos or monkeys, they cooperate in small groups. But humans are able to cooperate among diverse people who don't know each other. They are not related by blood because of stories. Stories are weaved to knit us together the way we weave pullovers. So we must step forward as young people and understand that we must create a story that carries everybody along. We must advocate for youth inclusion in the family, in the church, in community, and the national life. Because language, as Goge Wadiongo says, is the collective memory bank of people's experience in history. So we must keep banking our common history and a common story. We must enrich that bank and make it better each and every day. We must also remember that each of us hold an office, not of the VC or DVC, not of a lecturer or a county governor, or even the one I occupy of General Secretary. All of us are born in the office of a citizen. The office of a citizen. Can you tell your neighbor the office of the citizen? Yeah, tell them, I was born in the office of the citizen. I don't know whether you know about that office, but I want to tell you, through a speech that was delivered by Barack Obama in 2017 when he was about to retire. He said, it falls to each one of us to be anxious. It falls to each of us to be those anxious, jealous guardians of our democracy, to embrace the joyous task we have been given to continually try to improve this great nation of ours. Because for all our outward differences, we in fact all share the same proud title, the most important office in a democracy, citizen. It looks simple, doesn't it? But that citizen is the one that creates the nation. So he says, so you see, that's what a democracy demands. It needs you, not just when there is an election, not just when your own narrow interest is at stake, but over the full span of your lifetime. If you are tired of arguing with strangers in the internet, I know we are always in the internet as young people, try talking with one of them in real life. If something needs fixing, then lace up your shoes and do some organizing. If you are disappointed by your elected officials, grab a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office yourself. Show up, dive in, stay at it. End of quote. Friends, it is time to dive in. It is time to engage and stay at it. Are you ready? Read the book of Lamentation. But the book of Lamentation also has another book of Jeremiah, which is very, very active. I want young people not to write lamentation every day. As young people, we must end lamentation. Today, we must now write the book of Jeremiah, where, like Jerusha, we'll prophesy that on this mountain, people will come to learn. Are we courageous enough to do that? So David comes from being a shepherd boy to a sovereign. That's how you begin your chapter. Beloved young people, David's journey was never easy. Yours will not be easy either. He was an overlooked youth, but he became a nation's unifier. Your journey will not be easy. Your hopes are Kenya's fuel. Your fears and shame and the fire, they are the fire that tempers the steel, the forge that shapes the iron. Ben Okri says that to poison a nation, poison its stories. A demoralized nation tells demoralized stories to itself. Beware of storytellers who are not fully conscious of the importance of their gift, who are irresponsible in the application of their art. They could unwittingly help along the psychic destruction of their people. What stories are you telling? It is time to drain the poison in our stories, and it is time to throw away the demoralized stories we tell ourselves. It is time to stop listening and watching those who feed our eyes and ears with poisoned narratives. It is time we say no to psychic destruction of our people and nation. Through these academic engagements that sharpen our minds and through participation in our families, communities, universities, and nation, we can turn the tide around. So it is time to register as a voter, and it is time to vote. It is time for you to vie. It is time for you to build Kenya. It is a time to nurture citizenship. It is time to embrace ethical leadership. It is time to demand for meaningful participation. It is time to throw away and avoid the toxic and demoralizing stories. We must seek stories that feed into our energies and hopes and reject stories of defeat, stories of despair and discord. We must reject the single story so that we can regain our paradise, as Chimamanda says. To carry our culture forward and our country, we must keep filling that bank of our stories. Rise like David. And I can say, rise like Jerusha. We are here because of Jerusha's story. Take your slingshot of education, activism, your ballot, your voice, and slay the giants of corruption, apathy, and drug abuse. We can do it. No one will do it for us. We must do it for ourselves as young people. Kenya Stories awaits your pen. Make this chapter the best yet. The floor is yours. Let us talk, let us act. God bless you. God bless Chuka University, and God bless Kenya. Thank you very much. So we had said we'll have a few questions, so perhaps, VC, if you allow, then we can have a few questions.
To our DVC, the distinguished guest, the CODs, and other dignitaries present, good afternoon. Yes, I go by the name Ambrose Odero from Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, pursuing Geography and Kiswahili as a course. These are my questions, and first I will start with the evaluative question, which says that, is social media a tool for empowerment or manipulation among youths? Number two is a problem-solving question, which says that, how can Kenyan youths combat corruption effectively? With this, I'll refer to our Constitution of Kenya 2010, Chapter 4, which talk about the Bill of Rights, Article 10, which speak of national values and principles of governance. Because when our youths have tried much to combat corruption by fighting for integrity, transparency, and accountability of the country, yet they are being arrested. So my question, which is the best way that our youth can use to combat corruption in the Kenyan government? Then I want to say this from the book of 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 12, that, which says that, do not start to allow people to look down their noses upon you or to despise you because you are young. All of us as youths, we are able and we also have right to stand for our rights and freedom. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know whether there's any other question. Yes, we could have that side, then we come to this side.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My name is Hilary. I'm a psychologist in training at Chuka University, and I have two questions to ask. Sir, you mentioned something that we as youths, we should not look at the problems Kenya is facing, but we should be the giant to solve them. Now my question goes into this perspective of the political accountability and leadership. Now, if you look at the Article 55 of the Kenyan Constitution, it mandates youth representation, but yet many young leaders are appointed as the figureheads in token roles. If you look at the example of Casmuel, they are being appointed as the figureheads in the token roles. Now my question is that how can the youth move from being invited guests at a photo ops to having actual veto powers over national budget decisions? My second question is in relation to economic contribution and the hustler reality. Now our country, Kenya, has a massive youth bulge. If you look at the Kenyan population, almost 75 to 80% of the population are under the age of 35 years. Now, if the economy continues to fail in absorbing the 1 million youths entering the labor force annually, will this bulge become a demographic curse rather than a demographic curse that triggers social instability rather than nation building? Thank you, sir. May God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have two on this side, then we can answer that side, here and here.
Thank you, Canon. I'm not a youth, but I'm a Chuka elder. So it's not really be a question, but I'm just concerned about the institution of the church in terms of mobilizing the youth to demand their rights and be able to be counted. First of all, I appreciate your speech. It was very encouraging to the youth and to the general citizenry. My concern is that there are several issues that are affecting the youth: unemployment, corruption, bad governance, violation of human rights, nepotism. We have seen letters of the TSC being dished out in funerals and ceremonies. So the youth who do not know people and desperate that they are not able to be employed because they don't know the county commissioner or the governor and so forth. So my question is that being a Chuka, I've seen several general secretaries of NCCK come and go. But that office was very reverent when Mutaba Musemi was there, when Canon Karanja was there, when other people were there. They were really strong to fight for the issues affecting the youth. But of late, we have seen the church, including the office of the NCCK, very silent and very docile on those issues, that they are not really coming up to fight and talk boldly about the youth issues in the country. So my concern is that are we in the bed with the administration that we are not talking, or NCCK has changed strategy away from what Mutaba Musim stood for, or even Canon Karanja stood for, or Joya and the others who are actively involved in activism and fighting for the justice of the youth and general citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have the last one here.
Okay.
Oh, you can ask.
Now that the mic has passed where I am, my name is Dr. Martha Muraya from the Department of Humanities, and thank you so much for that powerful presentation. My concern is about the mushrooming religious extremism and cultism that is sweeping a lot of the lives of our youth. And sometimes we don't know, as parents and as lecturers in the university, we come to realize that the students have already engaged or involved in cultism when it is too late. Now, I don't know how we can harmonize the religious right or the constitutional right for worship and violation of the youth rights, and especially by predators and cultism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have the last one so that I answer those.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Enoch from Science and Technology. My question is, this narrating of the stories, you have said stories are power. Now, I can see in the Bible, most of the kings, you find David, Solomon, they usually use the music. And you can find nowadays, music is also used most by youths in narrating many things. Does music has power? Does it bring negativity, the way the music is framed and how it is being given out to the modern societies?
What do you think?
Because, yeah, I can see music was mostly used in tradition, like in worship, in politics, praising someone. But nowadays, music has come to be used in different things, like you find they're spreading some unnecessary message, but they are using them through the music is where most of them have gone into the way of narrating the story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wish we had time to discuss it further.
The last one, kindly.
Yes.
Citing on the already existing protocols, my question is about what age is considered as the direct talk age. For instance, it is not every child or every youth is getting a chance to
such institutions where we can get in touch to Canon and others. And so my question is, what age is considered that we as youth should start being exposed to what we deserve? Because we find most of us realize what we deserve when we are leaving the youth age. So what age is this that as a Kenyan youth I'm supposed to be knowing my rights, and what should I do to achieve them? Thank you.
Good. I think let's answer those ones first. I didn't understand that last question, whether it's asking who is a youth and or whether it's when you know that you know the rights of a youth when you're about to leave that age bracket. I felt that that's the dissonance that you're.
Okay, I can clarify.
Yeah, clarify that.
First of all, I said we as youth, what is this age that is considered a direct to direct talk age? What do I mean by that? I mean, what age is this deserve that we as a youth should, we are allowed to know what are our rights, and what is this that we should do to make sure that we achieve those rights. Because not every youth is getting a chance to be in an institution like this, whereby we'll get in touch with the colonel and others to talk to us. Most of us have not been exposed. So what age is this that even can be even legalized, that every person realizes these are our rights, and this is the time, and this is what we should do to make sure we achieve those rights as a youth. I don't think
okay,
it.
I'll try. I'll attempt to answer that question. Let me start with a question around social media. I am happy that you have media here, and we talked with the dean a lot about your media studies. Social media carries with it values, because stories are reservoirs of values, whether good values or negative values. And social media can also be used for violence, to promote violence, or even for what you talked about, manipulation. It is true, we must look at social media, especially now that it is driven at the back by algorithms that initially were created by humans, but with AI, the algorithms are actually also being created by AI. Which means that the stories that, first of all of us here, we may be 100 or 200 people here. Our experience of social media is not the same. Because AI is understanding you and feeding you with what you want, or what the algorithm is created to feed you. So in future, AI is going to be the one that is going to be feeding us with the stories that AI wants to feed us. But that's a talk for another day. So I can say that AI is manipulating us. My thesis of my story was that stories change us. And the social media story is changing us, even manipulating us. You have quoted the national values and the youth provisions in the Constitution. That was a promise. So we have to work, all of us together, to realize that promise. And it's a long life issue. The document of the Constitution itself is a promise. I was taught by I did law, and I was taught by Professor Githu Muigai, and he kept telling us, the Constitution is a list of promises. The Bill of Human Rights is also a list of promises that we must make happen. And how do we make them happen? Is by working together and by making our stories be stories that are aligned to those aspirations that are in that document. I agree with you. Timothy was told by Paul, let no one despise you because of your youth. But you did not read the other part. Timothy was asked to do what? To be an example in 5 things: in conduct, in faith, in purity, and what else? In speech, and there is another 5th thing. So young people are not just passers-by. And I think the last person was asking a question almost in that space. Don't wait to be told, now you are of age. No one is going to tell you that. We were never told. We were never told. Of course, older people keep reminding you, you are young, you are inexperienced, you are entitled, and so on. But we must tell ourselves the story that we are now mature, behave mature, and like Paul told Timothy, we must be examples to even those who are grown-ups. Here I talked about the problems facing Kenya, but he did not put the statement the way I had put it. I said problems facing Kenya are the giants, the Goliaths, and that you are the Davids who are going to solve the problem of unemployment, the problem of corruption, and the other problems that face our country, including agricultural production. So, Article 55, you talked about it, and the young people are called upon to be involved. Most of the problems of the world are solved by the young people, including this country. And we have many, many examples. So my call is that we must tell our stories that we are actually now the ones who are going to make the changes that are going to drive the changes that we want to see. You must know that if you want to predict the future you as young people are going to live in this country, you must create it. And you create it through the stories you tell yourself. My father here, who is an elder in Njuri, thank you for your question. It's good that you have been there during Mutava's time, perhaps also Kobia's time, and now you are on this time. It's the same thing. There was President Moi's time. You are also there. The time of Kibaki, the time of Uhuru, and now we have President Ruto. Times change. And if you don't change with time, then that is how organizations fail to respond. But the council and the NCSK and the church leaders are very actively involved with young people and also in the life of the nation. But we are also looking at it relative to the times that we are living. The mushrooming churches, Dr. you have asked about them, and the cults and so on. When poverty becomes so pervasive, and desperation and depression becomes pervasive, and mental health becomes part of the recipe in the population, the result is cultic behavior. If you go to a developed country, there are less cults. If you go to a poor country, people believe and they want to make faith solve problems that they can solve. For example, you pray to have water in your tap. But that's not something reverent that you pray for. You create a project that puts water in the tap. I hope you are following me. So our people are in a desperate situation. And therefore, they are consulting anyone. And they are entering into arrangements with cults. And that's a dangerous thing. Until we address poverty in this country, there is no law that is going to make people stop believing in cults. There is no law. Because people are looking for solutions. And the cults are telling them a story of salvation. If you look at Shakahora, what was the story? You have problems, leave them outside the gate, come here, fast, meet Jesus, and then you'll be happily ever after. Simple story. And many people believed in that story. So I think that's why I would like to end in view of time. But please, yes. You can perhaps use a microphone.
In the recent past, because this is we are addressing the youth issue, I have attended many weddings of youth today that purport to vacate from the church marriage where pastors are to join them. Increasingly, the youth of today are getting more and kind of interested or attracted to this type of marriage, which is come traditional. They want to do it appear like it's traditional. It's not really traditional, but they want to dress traditional. If they are Kikuyus, they dress in those colors, make a bleach and appear it's traditional, and they avoid, and they want to do marriages that appear akin to what we call in Western culture partnership. You know, in Germany you'll find somebody telling you, this is my partner, not my wife, my partner. And it's kind of, they have signed an agreement. If it doesn't work, we part. Yeah? And we are getting almost to that scenario where many of our youths are getting in that direction and have attended. In the last already alone, I attended about 4, which are ordered, including engaging in going to ask for dowry in that scenario. Now, my question in that scenario is, what's happening? The church marriage that we used to do these very eloquent and elegant kind of very, very elaborate marriages with all that, where ladies wanted to wear the white gown and everything. What has happened? Is it that the church has failed the youth in a way that they are running away from the church? They don't want to be joined by a pastor. They feel they are better do that and go to the Attorney General and get their certificate and disappear. What is it we have done as a church fraternity that we are not really the youths are running away from doing these kind of rituals that we saw, thought were very noble? It's a holy kind of institution, and they want to do it in a manner that if they don't agree tomorrow, they just part without issues. Yeah, what can we do as a church to bring them back?
Yeah, I attended the wedding of my niece, who I have mentored all her life, and she was getting married to a very well-educated young man whose father was a church elder in PCA, and they chose to do a traditional Kikuyu wedding. I've talked to people in Kisii, in Rift Valley, in Nyanza, in Coast, and that's a trend. What I can say that the story of marriage among young people is not the same story of marriage among our age mates. They have a very different story. They say marriage is a scam. And I wish we could get some of them to speak here, what their views on marriage are. And also, their views on Christianity have changed. They don't look at the church the way we looked at the church. Mr. President, am I speaking the truth? What you guys are saying. So a lot of things that are given are no longer are given now. And what we have been doing in NCSK is to encourage the clergy to have conversations with young people and to see how the new story of who Jesus is, who the church is, who the pastor is, and so on, we are able to understand it as older clergy and our younger clergy. But I can tell you for sure, the story is changing. The values are changing. The values of young people around marriage, as you say in Germany, is a partnership. There's a lot also of that kind of partnership that we're having around in the country today. And that's why for me, follow the story. What is the story of young people? What do they value? What are the values? And I think if we understand their story, we'll be able to understand why are they picking that way of doing a marriage. But it's to listen to them without judging, because they are our children. It's just like hair. We never used to have rastas as a way of expression of your hair, but now it's common. Yeah, we thought it was a Mau Mau thing, and it ends when Mau Mau ended. But now it's back, not just for ladies, but for men. You know? So culture is something, as I said, is the stories, our common stories. Goge Wanyongo called it a bank, our language, how we define things. And I think, DVC, you said that there's so much emphasis on sciences and less emphasis on religion, on music. You asked a question about music. Get the lyrics of songs that young people are singing today. Even the one in Sheng, tell them to interpret for you what the stories in those songs are. I can see you are smiling. My children don't like getting the lyrics, because I always look at the lyrics and I ask, surely what's the story here? Every song is a story. So the stories of yesteryears had a different story, whether they were traditional songs or Kikuyu songs and so on. Even songs we sing in churches. These days we sing chini kwa chini. What is chini kwa chini? And you're singing it in church. What value is chini kwa chini, Reverend? Yeah? So we have changed the story, and we cannot change the story and leave the old story. If the story changes, we change with the story, because the values change too. So let's be creative, and we are part of the storytellers. What stories do you tell your children? I am here because of my mother. She was not educated, but she told me if I got education, I'll be like so and so. There were a few people in my village who were educated. And when I finished Form 4, there were no jobs in the 90s. I was told, DVC, I will spend 4 years in the university studying law, but there will be no jobs. I said, I want to stay without a job, but with a degree. They even look for a job for me, so that I don't go to university. I went to university by force when my relatives and the friends around my mother didn't want me to go. There were no jobs in 1990s. I have never lacked a job since I graduated. So the story I told myself is that I'm going to get education, and I'll be successful. And here I am today. So I am a lived story of what I have spoken to you today. So let's sit down and talk. Let's not talk at each other. Let's have conversations with young people in our homes, in our churches, in our communities. And I think that's how we have, Jorijeke is here. I hope that Jorijeke is also having conversations with young Meru men. And the women are also doing the same. Because even Jorijeke has changed. The stories I hear about Jorijeke that was there before, now I hear Jorijeke that normally receives money to endorse a certain person or a certain candidate. You know, I was talking with my friends from Northeastern. The clans and the elders used to say, who is going to stand for elections? Is that a bird or a bomb? Oh, building. Okay. So they are telling me now, the elders are no longer having control of who is running and who is not. So the story is changing, and we must change with the story. So thank you very much, and God bless you.